This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.
On Facebook.
Bryan Houston's Sports Radio Live. Let the games continue. On 99.3 Talk FM, here's Bryan Houston.
It's going to be a great night for werewolves. Happy Halloween. Glad to have you here with us on this Monday afternoon from Willie G's in Longview. You can come out here and watch Monday Night Football tonight, San Diego versus Kansas City. They've got all the Monday Night bombs out here tonight. Trust me, they will explode eventually, and when they do, you'll know it. In the meantime, I bet you they'll have quite a crowd here Saturday night for the game of the century this week. Number 1 LSU against number 2 Alabama, and right now on the APEC VIP hotline, cutting-edge training for the serious athlete, apecgo.com, joining us from CBS Sports and the Tim Brando Show, which you can hear every morning from 9 to 11 on 99.3 Talk FM. The one and only Tim Brando. Mr. Brando, how are you, sir?
Bryan, great. Good to be with you.
Hey, listen, I love your show. Love to watch you guys. I'm really kind of concerned about the Monster Mash this morning.
Well, we don't ever let the information get in the way of the good time, do we?
Well, you know, listen, I know a few dance instructors. We can send one over immediately if you'd like.
All right, there you go.
All right. Does this LSU-Alabama game, in your mind, qualify as one of these game-of-the-century types?
Yes. Count me in as part of the hype machine. Again, if you go back, look at the history of the sport, history of college football, games of the century in the minds of a lot of fans might be a national championship game or a bowl game. Games of the century, in my mind, could never be that. They have to be regularly scheduled, regular season games, and they have to come up at times in the year when you've got a unique set of circumstances to have teams that are ranked 1 and 2, teams that are distancing themselves from everyone else, and are deemed to be in a category all by themselves. And that was the case, say, for instance, in 1966 with Notre Dame, Michigan State, 1946 with Army and Notre Dame, and the Mr. Inside, Mr. Outside era post-World War II. That would be the case in 69 with Texas and Arkansas, and the game that was played, that was moved back to December when it was supposed to be played earlier in the year. And my friend Bino Cook was at ABC, and he convinced Roone Arledge to get both schools to move the game from its date in October to the first week of December. It did so with the idea that those two teams were the two best in the country, and it worked out that way. 1971, Nebraska and Oklahoma on Thanksgiving. The 35-31 game when Jeff Kinney went into the game late in what was, for those days, a track meet, running the football primarily, and Johnny Rodgers' Heisman return on a punt that took place. Those games were exceedingly special and hold, I think, a spot in the minds of football historians. It's quite unique. That game, for instance, between Texas and Arkansas was so big that President Nixon gave the AP National Championship trophy to Darrell Royal.
Yep.
After the game in the locker room. They still had to play on New Year's Day against Notre Dame in the Cotton Bowl that year. Those types of things set the games of the century apart. What sets this game apart, Bryan, more than anything, is not only because of the rivalry between the two schools, the level that they've played at each of the last 4 years, splitting those games 2-2 each coach, but also the fact that Nick Saban was at LSU, brought them their first title in 48 years, then left, became the hated rival at the preeminent school in the SEC, and that'll never change for LSU fans. Okay, that will never change for them, like it or not. But Miles has now been there long enough that this is really his team. No longer does he have to worry about the long shadow cast by Saban. He really has earned the right to be clearly the leader of that organization and has done a tremendous job. So all those things have to be in place for you to qualify as a game of the century. Now, does that mean if the game is a blowout or it's not well played that we're all fools? No, it doesn't, because we still are talking about where this game falls in the schedule, what the two teams are all about, what their recent history and long history have really been all about. And, ultimately, the conversation that we could even see these two teams play again is legitimate for the national championship. So what was the last time we had a game like that where people were talking about the potential of, regardless of who loses, the team that lost might still have a chance to play again the team that beat them for the national championship? And that conversation, whether you agree with it or not, is a legitimate conversation.
The thing that always worries you about a ball game like this is we've been pointing at it now almost since the beginning of the season, the way these two teams have played, and then you get to the ball game. Can the game possibly live up to the build-up and to the hype?
Well, in this case, I think it can, because it has each of the last 4 years. I mean, the Julio Jones catch and then the Patrick Peterson interception that could have been called and wasn't called an interception. That game 2 years ago went down to the wire. Last year, LSU had to run a reverse on fourth down that really fooled Alabama. They had to convert a 4th and 13 late in the game, brought Jarrett Lee in to do it. It was a huge play to hold on to a 24-21 win. I don't think anyone anticipates that this game won't live up to the advanced billing. I really don't.
It's ironic, don't you think, Tim, that this year with this particular LSU team, Miles has always been known as the Mad Hatter and always pulling crazy stuff out, but this year he hasn't done that, and his team is probably closer to being like a Nick Saban coached team than any team he's had at LSU.
It's a lot more. That's a great point that you make, Brian. This is a lot more his team, a lot more the kind of team he wants to have. As much autonomy as he gives to his coordinators, and his approach is different than Nick Saban. He's a bit more of a CEO than Nick would be as a head coach. I think he was at odds with the way the offense was being run under Gary Croton, but pardon the pun, but I think he kind of tried his best to keep it under his hat, whether it was mad or not. I think he tried to keep it under his hat. Now, with Steve Studrawa as his coordinator and Steve Kragthorpe as the quarterback's coach, this football team's got a clear-cut identity as a downhill, north-south, running power football team that will go to play action, and which is exactly what Saban's offense has been about. So there are striking similarities between the way these two teams play, although you could say that Miles and Saban's approaches to coaching these similar styles are polar opposites, because they are. These two guys are not at all alike, but they're both very effective. They sort of prove that you can skin a cat a different way and still be a great coach. But yeah, he's running the football a lot more now. His quarterbacks seem to be a lot more at ease with what they're doing, and they have more playmakers than they've ever had. You don't have to pull rabbits out of a Mad Hatter when you're winning by 23, 24 points a game. And the margin of victory for them has just been incredible. I mean, the Oregon game was one of the closer games they played, and it was a blowout. And the Mississippi State game was one of the closer games that they played, and they physically dominated that game. So, they are remarkably similar to be coached in diametrically different ways, as they are.
Who do you favor in the game?
Well, I haven't made a pick yet, and I probably won't until Friday, because a lot can happen. As I said on my show today, Brian, a lot can happen when the smoke clears. You don't know if it's real or synthetic. So you have to be careful between now and Friday. Hope the bat phone doesn't ring and a couple of players are ruled ineligible. You just don't know. But as I size this game up and begin to sort of peel the different layers of the onion, what I find is an LSU team that probably has the advantage at quarterback, probably is disadvantaged a little bit at running back, because Trent Richardson is the X factor, and I think is without question, when the 22 men are out there, the best player on the field. When he's out on the field most of the time. You look at the receiving core, I give the edge to LSU. But from an offensive standpoint, I give 2/3 of the of the edge to LSU. I think the defensive front and linebacking core for Alabama would be superior to LSU's, but I think LSU's secondary has better playmakers, have guys that can take the ball away, whether it's Tyrann Mathieu, the Honey Badger, or Morris Claiborne. I mean, they've got guys that can yield yardage but still come up with a big play and keep them in games. So, to me, 2/3 of the advantages on defense go to Alabama, 2/3 of the advantages on offense go to LSU, which gives us a wash. We'll see who can win the battle of the special teams. Who gets a kick return? Does Wing continue to punt the ball into coffin corners and give LSU a field position advantage much of the day? I think that the dynamic players on the field for both teams are all going to have moments when they make big plays. I don't think this game is going to be a 16-10 or 13-10 slugfest. I think the big-time playmakers are too good to be stopped. So I'll say that the first team, like last year, to get the 24 points, you get the 24 points in this game, you're going to win. And I think that should be the goal of both Alabama and LSU. Offensive, special teams, defenses, just find a way to score 24 points and you win this game.
All right, okay, we're going to get off of this game for just a second, just talk about college football and the realignment situation. Who is Missouri that they can hold the entire college game hostage right now?
Well, it's just, I'm tired of the story too. I am. I think that between the closed-mouthed, hear no evil, see no evil, we can't talk about this evil conference situation. The SEC Digital put out something last week, had to quickly take it off. We made fun of that this past Saturday on the College Football Today. The curators obviously need someone to light a pilot light in their curating meeting to tell them that this is not helping them. It's not helping any of the conferences that are waiting. It's not good for the game that we're in the middle of college football, past the halfway mark, and we're still having to deal with this. These are the kinds of issues that need to be taken care of in the summer, not in the middle of the season when the game's largest stages are providing so much excitement. As great as that game was between Texas A&M and Missouri, the number one talking point about it was that it was a Big 12 divisional SEC matchup.
Great.
Nobody needs that. It's not really good for the schools. It's certainly no fun for the players. I'm sure they're tired of hearing about it. But once it is announced, and I believe it will be announced soon, we'll all be saying, gee, this is what we knew this was coming for a while. But the problem is, and I've said it before, Brian, the people who govern intercollegiate athletics, and specifically college football, have never had a greater disconnect between the fans who patronize this game, who are always there to provide excitement and energy, and are patrons of the advertisers who support the teams in their local areas. There's never been a greater disconnect between those that govern the game and the coaches who coach the game, or the players who give sweat equity back to the game. Most of these people that are in smoke-filled rooms wearing suits and are piled higher and deeper in education have no understanding or care of what the masses that really love and are passionate about their game really want to see happen for the good of that game. They really have no clue.
It's sad. How excited were you to hear that West Virginia's coming to the Big 12? Obviously, we're very excited here.
Well, I knew Oliver Luck would do a nice job for his school, and he certainly did that. It also, I think, undercut the situation with Missouri in a big way. So reasonable minds who know how to connect T's and dot I's and that kind of thing realized that with West Virginia coming, that Missouri was leaving. Well, what I found really inappropriate was, and I'm a Republican and a compassionate conservative, I was really disappointed to see that there was underhanded conversations and dealings going on between Mitch McConnell, the Senate Minority Leader, and David Boren, his former colleague at Oklahoma,
shocking,
trying to circumvent West Virginia for Louisville. I thought that was distasteful and another example of why we have problems in government today.
All right, back to the big game one last time. What is the realistic possibility that there could be a rematch between LSU and Alabama in a BCS championship game?
Well, it's very real if Stanford and Oklahoma State both lose. If you look at Stanford's schedule, what's in front of them, could they lose to Oregon? Yeah, I think they could. Absolutely no doubt about that. They got a big scare, obviously, from USC. They might have already been eliminated were it not for just some incredible plays in that triple overtime football game with USC. But can they lose remaining games on their schedule with a Pac-12 title game to play this year? You bet they can. Oklahoma State's got Bedlam to take care of, and if Oklahoma beats them, and I think conventional wisdom, Bryan, is that they will beat them.
Yeah.
Now we're looking at a scenario where you have another team that's lost, and that Alabama or LSU lose. What of the potential? Just think about this scenario. Let's say, for instance, LSU beats Alabama in an incredible football game. Maybe there's a controversial play or two, right? And then the following week, LSU loses to Arkansas.
Oh man!
Now think about that one. Now you got every team in Division 1A that's lost one game, with the exception of Boise State. Can you realistically say to Boise State, we're going to put two one-loss teams in a national championship game for a rematch, overtaking you? Boy, I don't know if you can do that. I don't know if you can do that. Now, if one of those two teams is undefeated, along with Boise State, all right, let's say Alabama beats LSU beats Alabama and goes on to beat Arkansas, and you're looking at a situation where the choice is LSU versus Alabama again, or LSU versus Boise State. Which direction do the voters go? Do they say, you know what, we've got an agenda here. We're sick of the BCS. We want Boise State to go. Because I think a lot of voters would say, you know what, if you take Boise State over Alabama, you're going to nuke the BCS. Well, I think a lot of voters would say, you know what, we're tired of the BCS. Let's nuke it. So let's anger the entire college football world by taking Boise. I think that might happen. I think there's a chance of that. So it is Armageddon, and as you know, that's what I want, is the self-proclaimed Antichrist for the BCS. So the more chaos we have at the end, the more anger, angst, and bitterness we have, the happier the Tim Brando show is.
And we want you to be happy, Tim. No question about it.
That's right, Bryan. If you haven't learned, knowing me for 35 years, you have to know it really is all about me.
And the good of college football. Tim, thank you very much for coming on today. Hey, I hope you guys have a great time on Saturday. I hope it lives up to everything everybody expects, and it's a great football game.
Same here, Bryan. And again, thanks to all of you for listening to the show there, and for you guys at 99.3 for taking the show. We really appreciate it.
We love the show. Thank you very much, Tim. Tim Brando, CBS Sports on Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live on 99.3 Talk FM. We'll take a time out. We'll be back with more in just a moment.
O'Reilly. This is a Sports Radio Live podcast covering your world of sports. Bryan Houston Sports Radio Live. It's weekdays at 3 on 99.3 Talk FM, the talk of East Texas.